Oh, good idea. 1 minute countdown, Elise.
Wow,
You're muted.
that seems super interesting. That's a graduate or undergraduate? Good for her.
Elise, I think you should hear, when Brooke starts the audio recording on Zoom, I think it'll play back for you like a whole thing, just saying it's recorded, so I'll have my recorder at the same time, and after you hear that.
Ambitious. Yeah.
And so.
You wanna do that?
Yes. People about sensitive topics.
Okay, is everyone settled in? Let's call the meeting, well, we're doing a public hearing first. Let's call the public hearing to order. We're going to accept public comment regarding proposed fiscal year 2025 budget amendments. We will have another citizen input after this public hearing, but if anyone has any public comment regarding this 2025 budget amendment, let us know. And we do have to wait until 5 minutes have passed, right, Jen?
That is.
That's the highlight page. Still 4 minutes to spare. We can walk over here.
Well. Nice.
Where you go? Good to see everybody. Jeez.
Thanks for coming up. This is probably the highlights of your entire day.
Yeah, what it is, thank you.
It's an adrenaline fueled.
That was the best handshake I've had all day.
Damn, they gave me a ride. I got to ride in the back of the ambulance. So
I don't like riding
they drove by and said, oh, that's
You
terrible.
might
go.
Like, hey, you wanna get in the back? I'm like, yeah. So it's very fun.
You didn't show me your insurance or anything.
No, they just, they, you know, what are gonna have about
Well,
it?
you need your credit card.
Well, come under here. You can do whatever you want.
You got a VIP escort or ride, I guess.
Nobody, online looks like raised their hand or anything, right? No.
See, I think as long as, my understanding is if you get in their ambulance, they can charge you.
Right, but they didn't
If
make
you
me
don't
go in
get
the
in.
bed.
Oh,
So
okay.
Huh.
I felt okay.
Yes, it's not great.
Yeah, I'm going up. Finish, out of this out. And it's weird because if you listen, some radio transmissions are great. Yeah, it sounds different. Yeah, but some are horrible. So I don't know, there's some adjustments in the whole thing that you can expect going for us. I don't know if we do yet. That'd be something that we'll put in after they're done. Every building, so that we. years ago. Okay. And I'm trying to get like years.
You're going to Canada anytime soon?
Well,
So in Canada anytime soon?
I'd like to go to Canada.
Just some entrances and stuff.
Yeah, isn't that great? Fantastic.
I'm glad that I did. That's the fun.
Yeah. And you're going to Revelstoke.
To, it's actually to.
Oh, yeah. My friend redid that lodge.
Oh, yeah. That's so beautiful.
And my friend Jeffrey did it
Wow.
about 3 years ago.
Did you do the what part of it?
Okay, Lisa, I think you're all set. Or-
Okay. Can I get a motion to adjourn the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Folks in the back, you guys.
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Hi.
And I would like to call the regular meeting to order. Does anyone have any citizen input?
I'd just like to direct the councilman. Mark Ake. I'd just like to direct the council members and mayor's attention to the written comments I submitted to the clerk for this meeting. Some of the exhibits were very large. But I would urge you to read the attached written comments and review the exhibits there. It's a brief overview of municipal assets available in the town of Alton. And I think it allows those unfamiliar with the public record documents to be better acquainted with public assets in the town of Alta and more fully inform your perspective on the quote unquote jurisdictional relationship. And I'll sign out today, as is popular with citizen taxpayer emeritus. Have a good Christmas.
Thank you. Thanks.
So Mark has submitted those comments and documents he was just referring to on thumb drives that I've given to each of you here present, and I'll have to get a copy of that to Elise and to Roger.
But it's also filed, so it's with the town
I
as a
actually have
record,
not received it other
Okay.
than this, I don't have a
but we'll
copy.
enter it in to,
I can grab it before I give it to Roger.
in addition to us.
Ask to be recognized by the chair. Can she hear me?
Sorry, you guys, I couldn't hear you guys for a minute. What was that question?
Can I be recognized with the chair to speak to the?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure, since you're sending this to us, I want to make sure it's also filed where.
I had a faux pas with my emails. The exhibits in there were too large to email. I emailed them yesterday, and quite frankly, the bounce notice regards the size of the email did not appear till this morning.
Okay.
And so yesterday afternoon, I was just as convenient to just dump it on a drive, and I dropped it off with Ms. Austin rather than Ms. Clancy. But I would ask that they be submitted as part of the record for this council.
Yeah, that's why I was asking.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Is Mike on? Mike Mon?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah,
Ah, great. Hi. So we're glad to be open as the ski area. And we are open and primarily on man-made snow, very limited conditions. We're hoping that Mother Nature's gonna give us some more snow. We got these 3 little storms on the horizon here in the next week, but they don't look like significant producers. So we'll see where we're at as we are getting close to the busiest week of the season and not much terrain open at this point in time. We'll see where that goes. But we're grateful for the opportunity we have to be open, and it's primarily because of the snowmaking that's allowed us to do that. So in that regard, parking reservations will go into effect this coming Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And we have chosen only to release about a portion of the parking reservations, not the full amount. We're somewhere in between 50 and 75% of the available reservations. We kind of based on what we saw the last couple of weekends that were there. So we'll see how it goes between now and then. We're looking at we just recently met with our board, and they've given us approval to move ahead with the Albion Day Lodge expansion. And so we're working with the town on getting the permits and reviews and everything done with that. They've also approved for us to move forward with a cold storage building in the Albion lot. But we've got some more work to get done there before we can submit anything to the town. Those are 2 up and coming things that we'll be wanting to kind of work through the town process and make sure we've crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's in that regard. I know that there has been some discussion in the town from a variety of people about should we allow condos to be built in the town of Alta in different places. From the ski area's perspective, our concern would be if something like that was to go forward, we would encourage the town to consider to only allow that to occur if the rooms could be in a rental pool and rented out when not used by condo owners, so that and written in such a way that they've got to be rented between the owner or guests. Those condos need to be available in full and a significant percentage of the time during the ski season in particular. But we do recognize it's become now a common practice, almost a necessity, particularly in ski environments, to be able to finance and build seasonal properties, that it's become the norm to be able to get that done. It's there. So we just, if we were to move forward with that, I would hope that we could do it in a way that's a win-win for the property owners as well as the town and the broader Alta community. We do recognize there are more people that want to come and stay in Little Cottonwood Canyon and not deal with the road during peak periods than we have the capacity that's there. Other than that, we're moving forward. We're going to continue to evaluate this next week how things play out and see where we go. Any questions from the council?
lots of head nodding, Mike.
Still skiing pretty well out there.
Well, I got to, our snowmaking has been good, and the grooming team has been really well. And one of the things we've added this year is we've put LiDAR radar on all the snowcats, so they can actually tell the depth of the snow that's underneath what they're grooming, and it's allowing us to distribute the snow, more evenly and not have as many spots where we maybe chew through to the dirt underneath. So I got to give kudos to our team, and the advances in technology are helping.
That's really cool.
But plus all that summer grooming you've done over the years has made such a big difference.
That,
Maybe-
that's it. Yeah, I agree.
It's like-
That's,
30-inch space, I would have laughed at you, but it's actually pretty good skiing out there.
it is, especially I find that the first half of the day, the snow's still soft and very edgeable and pretty good skiing. In the last half of the day, we start to get a few spots that get slick on some of the steeper slopes. That's there. Oh, thank you.
All right. Next, does anyone have any questions or?
She was never a team player.
That's my fault. I apologize. I clicked on the wrong person.
Anybody have
Oh,
questions?
she's still with us. She
Is
just
she?
moved.
Oh. I didn't have any questions, you?
I'm just curious how they would propose keeping condos occupied and whether they're based on.
Lost you guys for a second there.
I'm intrigued by that. I didn't know if this was the time to start.
I didn't know either.
They have mandatory rental agreements, but they're pretty unpopular in the US, and in Switzerland, they require that you lease if you have a condo, you have to rent it when you're not there.
Yeah, I just,
But in the US, it's tough to sell the condo on that basis.
that's what I was thinking.
But it's accepted there, but it's implemented for the same reason, correct?
Yeah.
It helps the
Hotbeds.
Yeah.
first, yeah.
And I can-
occupancy
Yeah,
Yeah, and that they want the occupancy,
on.
they don't just want it to be a bunch of empty condos.
Yeah.
it might stop the phone now, right?
Yeah, do you want me to put it back on?
I think it's
Let's
under
go
us.
to the.
No, I mean, it's something for, I think it's something for us to
Well,
talk
it's a
about.
later
Yeah.
conversation. I just thought it was an interesting comment that I was like, I've never heard of that.
January
So we
7th.
Control that.
Or 9th.
Yeah, there are. We're not aware of a mechanism available to local governments to regulate that in a land use ordinance. Well, that's all I'll say, is that we don't think that's something that can be written into.
Don't be wise.
into this ordinance.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, it's a complex issue, and someday we'll get to actually have like a workshop or something and talk about it.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, I think that it's amazingly fortuitous that all of the existing lodging properties are within the base facility zone, and we haven't allowed condos for any of them. So they're all playing by the same set of rules, and I think that's really great, and if we could try to keep that going, I'd support that, because I think it would preclude a lot of arguments down the road.
And any sort of pending properties also still fall in that same space.
Exactly, so everyone's playing by the same rules
Yeah.
going forward, and I
Makes it
think
easier for us.
I'm all about the fairness aspect of that.
John, do you know how Switzerland do they have rent caps? If they require people to rent it, how do they control the
Well,
price?
people try to
That's not
defeat it by
price.
saying I want 100,000 a night, no, it has to be at market, and they've only recently been allowing Americans to buy even under those terms.
No, I know.
And as they open it up, part of it is, it's always been based on, you're not gonna be the guy. You're not gonna be the guy that doesn't comply with that, we let you buy property in Switzerland and you couldn't follow the rules. And so there's, and that's just how they've done it.
When Americans show up in your country, it's problematic.
Especially we're behind the Russians are already there.
That was my experience last year.
All right, next item. Does anyone have any questions regarding the departmental reports?
Did you want to say anything about to just move on from the water fund and that whole thing? We don't have to say anything about it. Or for some time or something.
So I think the council was made aware that when we approved the budget amendment in October to allow for quote unquote 2 payments, a catch-up payment and then a regular payment from the water fund to the general fund. I made the transfer a couple days after the council meeting for the FY24 catch-up payment. But it's kind of a little bit of a different, because it's from one fund to another, it needed a second journal entry. And I just don't do these sort of things a lot, and so I didn't do the psycho journal entry, I made the transfer, but it just wasn't reported in your budget document, so it made it look as if it hadn't been done. And so I've since done the journal entry and it'll be reported in future budget documents. I guess that's correct.
Good. Yeah. Good to make.
You should the financial statements, right? So the balance sheet.
The balance sheet was correct.
Mhm.
It was the budget documents that were not
Yeah,
correct.
so it's good if the transfer actually happened.
I don't know, that may be true, I don't think it's worth really diving into. I thought that the balance sheet didn't change from the 358, and so that's how, it's like the water fund balance sheet, I'm sure it's right, but whatever, you can fix it.
Any
Yeah.
other departmental report questions?
Yeah, I did ask Mike to just inform the council about some late breaking problems with the transition to the phase 2 radio system with the Utah Communications Authority.
Oh, yeah. I heard about this.
Fun and non-technical coursework.
So Mike Morey. I guess I would start by stealing a quote from our town attorney that our higher echelons of government here in Utah are all about local controls as long as they're the ones that have it. And number two, there needs to be a special place in hell for radio programmers. More than 10 years ago, the state announced their plans to go to a statewide radio network. At the time, all of us public safety entities, police and fire, were working off VHF radio channels, which was a workhorse technology. It served us well. The FCC wanted that spectrum of the radio world for commercial use, and so they dictated that public safety agencies would go over to a different bandwidth, and that we would have universal standards for interoperability. So the state made their plans and they selected their vendors so that there would be a statewide radio system where, a cop in Alta can talk to an officer or a firefighter in St. George via this network. And it was a good thing to do. They announced at the beginning that there would be 2 phases to this, phase 1 and phase 2. For the last decade or more, we've been operating off phase 1 of P25, which is the name of the technology. And we've all been getting along pretty good, I think.
Yeah.
So this week, Salt Lake County agencies transition to phase 2, which the difference being is it's more digitized, it has more of a capacity to transmit data along with radio signals. And there's some enhanced security for it also. So this is all being done under the Utah Communications Authority, which is the parent organization for Salt Lake VEC, which is our 911 center. The town of Alta is not dispatched by VEC. UFA, however, is, and we've got our contract relationship there. So from the onset, we've tried to stay engaged in this and have statewide acknowledgement that we have an independent dispatch center. That's met with some resistance in the legislature. We've argued our case. We're still here. I won't bore you with that. One of the downfalls being a little town is people don't, they forget to think about us. So we've tried to deconflict that for a number of years. Give them the information, slowly prepare for this, with this council and previous council's help, and buy the radios and all the hardware that we knew that we would be needing for this week. Long story short, they announced a date for everybody to come in and get the radios programmed. We were not invited. We deconflicted that. Let them know that we'd be there Monday morning with all of our police department there on overtime and all of our equipment to be touched. We were the first ones there. We knew we needed to show up early. We were summarily swept to the other side of the warehouse where we waited the duration of the day and didn't get our radios touched. I can tell you, human tears were shed. They weren't mine.
Okay.
And this has been rough for everybody. There's been glitches and there's been emotions. I mean, I know of one particular pushing and shoving that got a couple of officers suspended. It's been an emotional week for everybody in public safety trying to get this done for the bigger good. After some really focused dialogue about 13 hours into this, when it was just me and them in the warehouse, we became their #1 priority. So as of yesterday morning, the town of Alta has made the successful transition to the new radio network. Congratulations, you guys have put a lot of the town's money and authorized us to do a lot of things over the years. I think we are across the finish line, so thanks. We think it's gonna work well. We, as a backup, have some legacy systems up and running so that we can continue to work on their old systems and our old VHF system, which we never abandoned because we knew we might need that backup. So we've got some more work to do on this, probably some more spending to do. We were maybe a little cautious in identifying how much gear we needed. We know that we didn't order enough batteries, for example, so we'll be coming to the town with our future needs soon.
I got 2 questions. Go ahead.
You spoke first, but I have questions too.
So, but this is an absolute for us because without having transitioned, we're in the wrong frequency band. Because they would have moved up to UHF, they would have moved down to
Yeah,
HF.
and unable to communicate with our peer agents.
That's what I mean, like, it was an absolute.
Yeah.
Is one of the questions I have, it might not be revealed until we move further down, which is if we've moved up to UHF, its ability to transmit down the canyon is different than VHF. It's inferior in my expert previous opinion, and are we gonna need some more infrastructure, or do we think it's gonna be adequate, or do we need to wait and see?
I agree with that, and what they have done to bolster the UHF capability is the repeater network.
Okay.
Yeah, which is all power dependent and all gizmo dependent.
Right.
There's a side division of UCA that we're talking to bolster backup capabilities up at P Ridge, especially now that the artillery is not there. We think that there's maybe some room to make power redundancy up there better. Make the way that the signal gets in and out of there better. And they seem to be excited about working with us and Ski Lifts and Force about that.
So, and then one final question then based on that too, is the legacy system that we can sort of hold on to, which we know is predictably reliable in a crisis, which usually entails also bad weather, which is one of the reasons I'm concerned about this. We're not gonna lose that anytime in the near future, so you feel good about that too?
I do. Licensing cycle is 10 years, and we just completed relicensing our VHF stations.
Okay, cool.
And the hardware we're using is dual band, so we can switch from one technology to the other.
From VHF to you.
Yes.
Cool.
I'm dumbing it down for the normal citizens.
I gotta tell you, I've got the tech vocabulary of a 3rd grader. So
Okay.
yeah, right.
So one thing that we always run into, so if you're in the town or on the ski slopes and you call 911, that call goes downtown.
All 911 calls will be routed to VEC, we hope. Now, if you're on the ridge line, that could be answered by a Utah County public safety answering.
Oh, fascinating.
Depending on what is closer to your phone. There are protocols in place to get that rerouted. Most 911 calls are EMS. So it's a good thing that they're going to 911 and not out to Central, because it gets these guys out of their station faster. We've got a good relationship with that. They know that once they've identified there's a law enforcement or other kind of problem in Alta, they do a physical handoff of the call to us. We're pretty practiced at that.
And then for my personal community concerns, I believe that I've always, and my neighbors have always previously called Alta Central and then they dispatch.
We want you to call us if there's a police emergency.
Call
If there's a medical
central is
emergency,
us.
please call 911, and
Okay.
as soon as it's possible, follow that up with a call down to Central.
Oh,
So that we can, be in the loop, help the fire crews out. Sometimes we can get there a little quicker and get first aid started and those kind of things.
the other situations in which I've called 911 have been like driving the road at odd hours, and I always call Alta Central when I see something off. Is that a 911 call when you're on 210?
I would recommend, if it's an emergency, call 911. If not, put the Salt Lake County Sheriff's non-emergency number in your phone.
I should, because I drive at weird hours, and so I see a lot of weird stuff. I've called a handful of times, so you'll send that around, or we know it, or,
I will text it to you for the
Beautiful.
meeting stuff.
thank you, sir.
May I answer any other questions?
I'm not gonna ask any more technical questions.
Dude, mine were like the.
Yeah,
slice
no,
of
that
that
took a minute,
questions.
I'm sorry. So,
That was good. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, do we have approval of, I'm looking for approval for the November 13th town council meeting minutes and the December staff and finance reports?
So we approve the staff reports council meeting.
I'll second it. Oh. All those in favor? Yes. All right, Chris, I think you're up. Facilities
Yes.
master plan.
Yeah, thanks, Elise. So thanks for all your time last month for a full hour work session with FFKR Architects. Talk about the facilities master plan. In the wake of that work session, I got with FFKR and talked about the outcomes of the work session. Asked if we could take a little bit of time to go back and look at the scope of work, consider the outcomes of the work session, and then come back to the council to kind of re-engage on the project in the new year. I had initially intended to try to schedule you all for a longer kind of mini work session during this council meeting. We'll pick up where we left off in the discussion in the work session, but figure given that it's the holidays and some other factors that we ought to put that aside for now. So in the meantime, I've had some great dialogue with John Byrne, who has proposed we try to in the near future get a range of other existing conditions information about the land we own, the buildings themselves, something along the lines of like an as-built survey, like a very sophisticated as-built survey, potentially be complemented by avalanche studies, studies of exposure to our sites from avalanches, which will be a primary determining factor in the feasibility to build something besides what we have presently on all of our sites. So hopefully,
Can I ask a question there really
Yes.
quick? FFKRS doesn't have that as part of their contract and their due outs to us. They don't have that avalanche mitigation or calculation or planning integrated into their stuff, right?
No, so this-
That's coming next, but it's not part of this. I was make sure I understood that correctly.
So the scope
Okay,
that we hired them to pursue does not include site analysis, doesn't include a survey. And yes, it does not include an avalanche study.
okay,
I did think pretty hard about including an avalanche study in the scope, but I took the temperature of a couple avalanche consultants and came to assume that it would cost a lot of money to do the kind of comprehensive analysis we will need to do a major project, and really to do any sort of structural alterations, significant structural alterations on.
so save the money for then.
Right, so I guess it remains to be seen how we would check that box, but we will certainly need to check it before
Right.
doing a major project
Yeah.
on any site, so. what I'd like to do is come back to the council. Just with a little bit longer of a to-do list, a pre-design and pre-development checklist of items. We'll talk that through, and then we'll kind of re-engage the remainder of this scope of work. And hopefully we'll be ready to launch or fund, talk about funding another project to supplement this with some site analysis information, as the next step.
I think that's a really good plan.
Me too.
I like to think about it as pre-design checklist and then pre-construction checklist. So the pre-construction checklist obviously includes the design
Yeah,
and all the other things you need before you put the shovel in the ground. But right now, we need to look at that pre-design checklist before we start spending money on design. It's important that we understand what we have. And I think that's what the pre-design checklist gets you to.
yeah, I agree.
So I think he's got this well organized.
And it's gonna evolve, as you said, so let's not spend money on something that's not gonna be a final plan anyway. We've
And
gotta get
let's
through.
let the existing RFP that,
Yeah,
just run its course, get what we get out of it. We still wanna milk them for their ideas. But it may be that we sort of put that on hold for a second and do the groundwork first, and I think Chris has got a good plan.
And I'll just address something that John has said to me over the last few months, which I think he's right on about, which is that we've done kind of one community center feasibility study after another. A couple based on this site, another based on another site, and they've been primarily focused on uses and programming. And those kinds of conversations have a way of kind of getting away from us. Doing that kind of work without understanding the constraints of a site could end up leading to a project that we're never going to get done for whatever reason on a given site. So and that's not a criticism of any project, including the current project. I don't think that we're about to get a Taj Mahal or anything like that. I think we'll get we are expecting to get some rough schematic level breakdowns of existing floor area programming utilization or floor area utilization, and then a little bit of what it would take to essentially meet our essential needs, the needs to provide our current services at a sort of modern level. So this is not the project where we design an Olympic swimming pool into the top floor of a giant town of Alta facility.
I look at it as, in the past, we've come up with a laundry list of programming and then tried to build a building big enough to hold it, whether we had a site for that building of that size or not. And, one of the things about the pre-design checklist, I think at some point you actually do a massing study and you just look at how big a building could we build on this site and be comfortable with it? Feel like it's in proportion, feel like it's not a 747. And that's all a part of a pre-design approach. So then we know how big the boxes can be. Coming back and filling in the programming, that's like the fun and easy part. And so it's a little bit more of a disciplined approach to the process.
yeah, I also think what you brought up last town council meeting had value to us, which is, the vertical component of this is something that I know will be part of this, but I'm a fan because it's cheap and effective.
I'd like to ask just a innocent citizen type question. So thinking about Mike's comment about the Albion Day Lodge being allowed to expand. Is there a reason why the town can't utilize a building that's owned by the ski resort? Of course, when it's not in their hours and doesn't interfere with them, and is there a partnership that would make sense in that structure that we could contribute to? And why hasn't that been explored if the answer is yes?
Well, that's a big question, I mean, I think it's up to this area, right? I mean, I think it's up to the town to propose something along those lines, but of course, we have no authority to, obligate them to provide that. I guess I would offer that, I think I've seen like drafts of an old Alta master development plan, which is the kind of batch Forest Service NEPA approval vehicle. The Skiria is used to run a dozen projects through the environmental process all at once. So at some point in the last 20 years, I saw a draft MDP that included a ton of Alta Community Center footprint at the Albion.
Because it makes sense from Alta's mission of being an environmentally sensitive resort. And yes, we don't necessarily want to be, year round, but we do a lot of programming, and it just seemed like it would be a opportunity for a good community.
Well, it's effective space utilization.
That was again your technical term, just like dumbing it down.
I think that also, in addition to the ski area, ski area is a little complex because they have return on investment kind of considerations that we don't really have.
Right.
But I do think potential partners include UDOT.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
And specifically the transit hub, but also a UDOT garage. It'd sort of be a more natural fit, I think, to partner with UDOT. But that, I certainly wouldn't pass on any opportunity to partner with the ski area that they were interested in.
Yeah, UDOT is more or less proposed that to us recently, that there could be. It's not infeasible that we would find some way to provide some like local public programming of some kind. In a transit building, in a transit center.
That sounds suspiciously like a technical term to me,
Which
I'm just saying. No, but I think, the UDOT thing, that's, there's a lot of value there because we need those people so much, and I don't think we're as fully integrated as we could be from a facility standpoint. There's some requirements that they could certainly justify on the need for space where they can position equipment up here that's not being met by current available space downstairs, right? So that's a great exploration. I think it's great that they've reached out. So I'm now looking forward to hearing more about that in the next year. Cool.
So anyway, that's it. No presentation today. I was thinking about making one, but declined to do so. And we'll come back to you in January, hopefully, or perhaps February, with a re-engagement with FKR and some kind of larger checklist of pre-design tasks.
Cool.
Moving on.
All right, discussion and possible action to adopt resolution 2024 R26, authorizing an local service agreement between the town of Alta and Salt Lake County Service Area Number 3. I did see Casey on. I don't know if it's Chris or Casey talking about
Yeah,
this.
I can introduce this. And I will do my best to describe the way that we used to make annual rate increases. The town and the service area have been operating under an interlocal agreement that was originally executed in 1990 that required the council pass a resolution essentially at mid-year to reflect the service area's calendar year, fiscal year. Establishing a rate for the following year, for the following calendar year. The general manager of the district would typically join just to talk about what they've been up to. Polly, this time around, Polly recommended that we, instead of keeping the 34 or so year old ILA, we essentially adopt a new ILA that reflects some changes in state code. Local governments and other public agencies are authorized to enter into agreements with one another under a specific act of the state legislature and statute and state code. That statute's changed, so our agreements have to conform to the statute. So that's one purpose of this new interlocal agreement. Another purpose, which is sort of a policy decision for the council to make, or, decide to support, is to try to streamline the process of making these annual rate increases. And we have a few other interlocal agreements that provide a similar an annual rate increase cap that allows for up to a certain percentage over the previous year's rate, such as the agreement with Waterfront Waste and Recycling. So this agreement would work similarly, and it would authorize the town and the service area to enter into a separate agreement if the service area proposes to charge a greater than 3% rate increase in the following year, and that would be subject to, as the agreement is written, town development budget. So that's our proposal to you. Again, that is a bit of a policy decision for you guys to make. But that's what we're proposing to do here today, adopt a new ILA with those provisions, rather than keeping the old ILA and passing a resolution annually like we've been doing for quite some time.
I kind of looked to Elise and John.
I read this. Did you want to comment on it, Elise?
No, I've been through a couple of these renewals of the ILA, and it seems like we're going through a lot of them, like Chris was saying, with some of the government, regulations and changes.
Yeah, I read it. The one thing that sort of struck me a little bit was that it's a 50-year agreement. That seems like a long time. I could see our situation changing, like at some point we might actually want to run our own water district.
Yeah.
But it is cancelable upon 120 days notice, so there wasn't really anything else in here and I think it's a very favorable deal for us, capping the rate increases at 3%. That's a great deal for us. So I think we should go ahead and adopt this.
Okay. Check this out. I move that we adopt resolution 2024-R-26 authorizing an interlocal service agreement between Town of Alta and Salt Lake County Service Area number 3.
Second.
All right, sounds like we need a roll call.
Councilmember, yeah.
Well, I guess I just wanted to mention that we do have Casey on the call today.
Yeah.
And I wanted to point out to the council that I don't believe the service area has taken action to adopt this agreement on their part. We didn't get it to them in time. But so the agreement says that it will take effect upon both parties adopting it. So I think they're expecting to consider that in their January meeting, like the third Monday or.
Is there any issue with us going first, or are we supposed to go second?
I don't think so.
Let's do it.
Yeah, Chris, if I can just.
Yeah, so we've already, unless Casey's got something.
Looks like he does have something to say. Hey, Casey.
Yeah, so we talked about this in our meeting on Monday. And I don't think anyone really had any issues with it. We just haven't had the lawyer, we've given it to the lawyer to look over. They haven't gotten back to us with a opinion yet. So we just wanted to, check that box before we actually voted to approve it. So, there's a possibility that something might change, but I guess we could go back and forth if we do have any changes. I don't think there'll be anything that changes, but I can't guarantee it, I guess.
Gotcha.
Copy.
Yeah. I mean, in anticipation of, it moving forward on your end legally, I think we can still just roll call on our resolution, because it's a resolution.
Sorry, I interrupted.
Councilmember Ansel,
Yes.
Councilmember Byrne,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
and Councilmember Schilling.
Yes, ma'am.
Motion passes.
All right. Got a couple of these resolutions coming up here. Discussion and possible action to adopt resolution 2024-R27 to request admission to the public safety retirement system at Utah Retirement Systems.
I think we've discussed this on multiple occasions, including with the budget committee and, in collaboration with the marshal's office. I feel really good about where we are on this, both with wording and the massaging we've done. I mean, anybody else? It's also in the interest of our staff.
Yeah, to me, this is papering over a decision we've already really made.
Yeah.
To go ahead with this.
Check this out.
Redundant.
I read it. Too curious.
I move that we adopt resolution 2024-R-27 to request admission into the public safety retirement system of Utah Retirement Systems for the town of Alva.
Second?
Yes. Seems like it should have already been done. Or I thought it was.
All right, roll call.
And we've talked about this
Yeah.
quite extensively.
I'll do roll call. Councilmember Byrne,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Schilling,
Yes.
and Councilmember Rance.
Yes.
And thank you, this is part of the application process for URS, so we need to have it on the record, so
Yeah,
appreciate
sorry.
you taking this step.
And I think part of the reason we delayed the final action was, one, to give us time to have these conversations in public, and two, to sync it with the budget amendment, since
Oh, yeah.
you know, the whole package of public safety and hiring for the marshal's office has significant budgetary implications for this year and future years.
Well, that's John's strong suit, so I turned it in on John for that.
Okay, next, discussion and possible action to adopt resolution 2024-R-28 to amend the fiscal year 2025 budgets.
It sounds like a broken record, but I went through this in painstaking detail and it looks just right to me.
I went through it in adequate detail for my own capability level. And I came to the same conclusion. Check this out. I move we adopt resolution 2024-R-28 to amend the FY 2025 budget.
I can second that one.
All right, roll call.
Councilmember Schilling,
Yes.
Councilmember Ansel,
Yes.
Councilmember Byrne,
Yes.
and Councilmember Morgan.
Yes.
I'd also add, just, it's great, we passed that, but I like this sheet a lot. Like, I like the notes that are next to the budget items you're changing, I've always liked those, but I really like this
I
sort
like
of
that sheet a
summary
lot.
highlight sheet too. This was a nice improvement.
But we sort of, you guys just sort of initiated, that's been like 3 months ago or so, I think, or 4. Was it Craig that did that? Is that what you're pointing over there, over here? Cause I like that sheet too, Craig.
It's
And if I had a Christmas gift for you, I might give it to you.
I mean, the intent is highlight the things that are significant, but
Oh, yeah.
23 pages is just overwhelming to read it.
All right,
Great.
cruising right along. Discussion and possible action to adopt resolution 2024-R-29 to adopt the capital projects plan.
Everything looked in order to me at the capital projects plan. It really hasn't changed much.
Well, I will say that I noticed a little late that there are just a couple of changes that we've made, and some of those are kind of due to some accounting. But there are some material status updates that we could provide against some of those projects. You're pretty much familiar with the big ones. Those would be, you know, work towards completion of the facilities master plan and water and sewer master plan projects. And the website's launched, so we'll make those updates for December.
Is that something that you're gonna send out separately or part of the next package for the next?
Well,
time?
you're referring to that under the status, it says selecting consultant, we've actually already selected the
Correct.
consultant, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, those status notes get changed as needed, and we'll make those changes.
I don't think any of the numbers changed.
Correct. Well, they changed according to, well, the numbers actually do reflect expenses paid.
And the truck edition where. That was already in there.
Well, that was on there.
Yeah.
Are we gonna permit another black vehicle?
Man, that's probably a sensitive issue right there, man.
Yeah. All right, Mike.
Another black truck.
I think not.
I move that we adopt resolution 2024-R-29 that also adopts the capital projects plan.
I second,
Roll call.
Councilmember Reyes,
yes.
Councilmember Burr,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Tiller,
Yes.
motion passes.
All right, something that I'm looking forward to next month, an update on the January town council meeting retreat.
Okay, so, we are set for a retreat, the day after the January council meeting. I've been working with Julie DeLong to prepare, an agenda, which is not completely finalized at this point. But we have a kind of a concept for an agenda, which includes kind of 2 or maybe 2.5 focus sessions. One on long range financial planning, and acknowledgement of a lot of the expensive projects we've been discussing lately, or conceptual expensive projects, and whatever changes might be coming down the pike for us here in a local economy. And then the next primary focus session would be on trying to narrow down the strategic planning process. I think we started in last year's retreat to try to get us on a regular cadence of adopting plans that the council and the staff can use to kind of agree on outcomes that the council wants to see pursued, and establish a decision-making process that is transparent and that we all adhere to. It would include a little bit of work to workshop the mission and values that staff introduced to the council subsequent to input in last January's retreat. Again, we workshopped that kind of early fall and presented to the council in October, I believe it was. We have a survey that's out there. I think this is going to be a much less intense preparation burden for you all. I just asked you to review. I believe Julie sent an email from SurveyMonkey, like an application that did not include hot links to the 2 documents. And then she emailed everybody in the contact list for this with it's a kind of a long PDF with a report from last year's retreat. I think you can probably more or less skim that, and then just take a look, if you don't mind, add some slides I put together for the February council meeting. That's like 8 slides that from my perspective, captured the important highlights from that retreat session. So take a look at those, take the survey, and let me know if you have any reactions that aren't appropriate to kind of capture the survey questions. We're still working.
Hey, Chris, when did that email go out? I don't think we received it.
Yeah, a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try to look for it. I don't see it in my Town of Alta mail.
Summary, but I didn't get like a survey.
She said, I got 2 links, so you might want to just re-engage with her, because it sounds like.
I didn't
trying to
get-
make
I
sure
didn't
we're
get-
I got a
missing anything.
survey monkey email, and then I got an email from Julie, which I expect was her recognition of this, which I thought when I got it,
Yeah,
and that Julie recognized the links. That
You may need to email out the name that it was emailed from, because my guess is it's in your junk folder, because survey monkey will often end up in your junk
I'll
folder.
look.
At
in
least
my
I'll
junk.
forward it to you. It looks like it was sent to emorgan@gmail.com.
Yeah, I don't see it in the junk. But yeah, if someone could forward that to me, that'd be great.
It was in the junk. Very good.
I'd like to just say that I've completed the survey already.
Then you're the only one. Because I
will send all that info to you tomorrow morning, Katie. So thank you for pointing out that error to me. Again, the location is either here or OLS. There is an Avalanche Education company that booked out seemingly about 40 days at Raleigh. The snows this winter, and they beat us to the punch. I think they booked those like in June or July or something like that. So We may be able to work with them to use the space and allow them to use the space or something like that, but there's a good chance we'll just be meeting in here. Since I think that's probably less paperwork involved for everybody. We'll have lunch, we'll have some food in the morning.
This place is fun. I love this place. I want to tear it down.
I actually kind of think it always seems like OLS is a little too big sometimes for a small group. So if maybe this will be good to have it in a smaller space.
I appreciate that. What's out here?
Make my life easier.
Yeah, you said what was the third session? I don't think we got that far. Or is that the third session? As far as breakouts or?
The two primary sessions will be on financial planning and kind of general strategic planning for the org, and then we'll have a little component of that second session which will be focused on mission values.
Okay. Cool.
That's the plan.
I like this thing.
It's not a competition.
And
To fill it out first.
Yeah. Just reaffirming that.
So who's the man who made the announcement though? You know?
For a moment, I feel like it was a competition on my win, so.
Be competitive, John, you know?
And yeah, I don't take lightly your willing to spend this time with the town. It's a big chunk of time, but I think a lot of what we've been up to over the past year would have been, I don't think we would be where we are if it weren't for that really focused session when we got together and nailed out some outcomes. So how we schedule this thing in the future is an open question. I think we ought to be trying to schedule sessions like this alongside our annual council meeting schedule. So maybe we can just, talk about when the next one of these things should be, when we're having that conversation in May or something like that, this upcoming year.
It's like, as someone who came into the town council new, it was a really great set. And, but I think its value is to open to the public in a way that allows people to talk and have dialogue without having to approach the podium, Mark comes up, he's got something to say, or any citizen input, and it's a way to be engaged and it allows us to talk. And I really dig the talking part. That's how we find out things. Don't laugh at me, Elise. I'm recovering.
Talking's always good. Communication's always great. Molly, hazard mitigation plan update. I saw the slides earlier, or part of our packet, and I know I've done this in the past when Chris was in your position.
So I know I've been putting it on the staff report the last couple of months, but just wanted to provide a little bit more of a general update about it. And I want to also express my gratitude to Chris and Mike for helping me through the process, as it was kind of like right as I was starting this position, and I definitely needed a lot of support to get it to where it is now. But the Salt Lake County Hazard Mitigation Plan, it is something that the county emergency management essentially facilitates. And it includes the entire county, and each jurisdictional annex kind of has its own piece of the plan. And so I'd like to make it full screen and So essentially, hazard mitigation refers to sustained actions that reduce or eliminate long-term risk to people and property from hazards and effects. And then they always like to remind us that every dollar spent on mitigation saves $6 on future disaster losses. And local jurisdictions are required to have a FEMA approved and adopted hazard mitigation plan to be eligible to receive certain types of funding, and they have to be updated every 5 years. So the last one we did was 2018, and now we're just going through the process again. These are the different phases of the plan. The planning process is really just the beginning, and getting everyone, all the right stakeholders involved, sending out public outreach. There was a survey that was circulated. Risk assessment is, identifying what different risks we experience uniquely here, that might not apply to every jurisdiction. Evaluating our capabilities, and that's kind of, what are our staffing capabilities, our financial capabilities, what are our limitations? And then now we're in the mitigation strategy phase. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. And that's where we just really make a plan for the next 5 years. What are certain mitigation actions we can take for these different
hazard profiles. This is almost all of the ones they wanted us to take a look at. I kind of chose the most pertinent ones. So we kind of just addressed each one of these things and how they may or may not affect us here in Alta. Avalanche is obviously a big one for us, which you probably won't see on very few other jurisdictional annexes will probably really highlight it too much, but we spent a lot of time on that. And kind of in relation to that is severe weather, severe winter weather, extreme cold, landslide, slope failure, and as well as things like epidemics and civil disturbance or terrorism. There are 4 main types of mitigation actions that like we could take for any one of these hazard profiles. Local plans and regulations, that's, you know, land use and policy codes that can influence how buildings are built or developed, how we develop land. So that's like the general plan, zoning ordinances, things like that. Structure and infrastructure projects. That's, you know, looking at other ways we can modify existing structure to infrastructure to protect them from hazards. Natural systems protection, that was a little bit more vague, but that's things like green infrastructure and engineering with nature and, you know, if you were a drought-prone community, harvesting rainwater, how can we use that? And the last one is education awareness programs. That's everything from just maybe communicating more with our constituents via the newsletter and social media, or hosting community events where we kind of give presentations. And now we're moving on to proposed mitigation strategy, which is the bulk of this whole process, which is essentially a long-term blueprint for reducing the disaster losses, which includes goals, plans, and an action plan. And this is essentially what we're updating every 5 years. And in the next couple slides so we've submitted these action items to the kind of committee, and they're currently under review by the folks at FEMA and our local emergency managers. So we just kind of wanted to put it on the council's radar. I don't know if we have to go through every one, but these are the list of things we came up with and kind of how we look at that. Oh, it doesn't work on the screen. But how we prioritize them and what the different, you know, timeframes mean, what the different cost estimates mean. Luckily for a lot of us, I think a lot of the things are relatively low cost. And none of this is necessarily required. It's not like just because it's on this plan, we're committing to doing this in the next 5 years necessarily. It's just these are some ideas that we're thinking about. And then 5 years from now, we can evaluate, okay, what did we do? What didn't we do? What worked? What didn't work? So some examples, you know, do we need to update our ordinance about avalanche hazard review? Do we need to identify insufficiencies with our culinary water infrastructure? And that's something I feel like we're just starting to work on with the Student Water Master Plan. Talk a lot about wildfire, it's definitely a big one. And you know, what can we do to help manage wildfire risk up here? Can we, I think this was my idea, but can we have a local ordinance that would just automatically adopt fire restrictions in the future? And then I forget exactly what SIAC stands for, Mike, but it has something to do with
That's basically our information and analysis center, intelligence, you know.
So those are what we came up with. And lastly, public outreach, you know, I think that's one of the easiest things to do. And then the council will be asked to adopt the plan officially via resolution, most likely in April. So right now, the whole plan is still under review. And then it goes to FEMA, and FEMA approves it, and then it kind of comes back, and each jurisdiction has to adopt it locally. So just keep it on the radar for the next couple months. And if you have anything that you didn't see on the list that you thought should be, or you don't think should be on the list, let me know. We can still make edits. And then this is great timing because there is a meeting tomorrow. If anyone's interested in joining, you can join virtually or show up in person, but they're having an executive leadership meeting. Which is specifically catered for folks like you. So it could be a good way to just learn more about the why behind it and the process of the bigger picture scale.
So I have a question, or is this the end?
This is the end.
I have a question, Molly. You know, do we have the ability, or have we in the past leveraged this to get FEMA funds for something that we want to do? Have we done that?
No, that's a good question.
Okay, because to me, I always look for dollar signs from those
Yeah.
people. Sometimes they give you really bad double wide trailers if you ask nicely, stuff like that. And
Lots and.
right, no, but I mean, so from my standpoint, I think I think it becomes an opportunity for you now, as we've got you in this position and you're the lead for this. To leverage things that we could find value in. Cots are an example. You store them in a box, and if we've got people we got to put into our newly built avalanche safe thing. And we've got severe weather, we can't go down canyon, and phase 2 comm system went down, cots. And FEMA provides that stuff, and we should leverage that.
Probably a half dozen meetings with Red Cross folks and Solid County folks.
Right, for storage of
Local partners always
pre-staged
for cots,
medical
and
stuff.
actually come up with a good location for cots, but so I actually don't mean to downplay that, I mean, that's.
No, it's funny, we all throw that out there, FEMA, it's double wide trailers and cots and water.
Well, that is one function of this plan potentially, is to use it to, if the council adopts a plan that says we want to do X, you can take that to some funding source and demonstrate that we have support from legislative body.
And I think for you, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, and the other side of the point is that it's funny that Molly's on after starting in the assistant position, because it's on a 5-year cycle. I started in 2014 in a much less organized and much more of a sort of hair on fire fashion. Jay, if you agree with that, the county was doing this 5-year cycle plan update in 2014 when I started. So it was kind of the first, large size 12 document that I worked on for the town. It felt a little chaotic, but not only can we use it as an instrument to get funding, but part of the justification we've used for spending the time that it takes to update these documents is that without having adopted this, they're eligible for certain kinds of disaster assistance funding. So
yeah,
it's kind of, we don't want any plans that just sit on the shelf and gather dust, but if we don't have this plan on the shelf, we may not be eligible for help when we really need it.
So I'd add a couple things to that, and I think that's, you might be able to leverage these, Molly, which is, there's a high threat special interest item for us that most people don't have to pay attention to. Avalanches is why I think this. When you bring those types of things to the government agency like FEMA and say, this is a high threat, high consequence, special interest item, and it sometimes knocks money loose if they've got pocketed other places. And, do you have to write a grant? Probably, but they should provide grant writing assistance with that. So you're not trying to do the heavy lifting by yourself. And we might get a really good ROI on this for things that we want. And I don't even know what those things are, but I think you'll figure it out. So I just offer that as, I think that's something to dig into, and I'm excited about that.
And I do want to clarify how I understand it is that any funding that this would make us eligible for isn't necessarily for disaster response. It would be more for mitigation things that we can do in advance. Not to say that we wouldn't be eligible for disaster response in other ways, but
that mitigation can be facilities or equipment based things that we get through grant from FEMA. So yeah, again, I agree with you. You're right. That's an important delineation, but I think there's some opportunity, and we don't even know what's out there. And their whole job is to do this stuff. And if you hit them right and you hit them repeatedly, they'll give you things. Even Ken.
The thing that struck me during your conversation or presentation was we can revisit this at another time, and I find it fascinating that there's not like a set of federal laws or rules that say you must comply with all of these things, and that it's all up to the town and its time frame. So it's kind of a fascinating project. I will say that I think with the Olympics coming in 10 years, I wonder if there's going to be more pressure on us or different things given our strategic position. I know that we did not have events here last year, our last Olympics, but with snow conditions, et cetera, are they going to suggest that we're gonna host events here, and how will that change things?
Having been, Ginny and I, having been to the last Olympics planning, we were both on groups.
Me too.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's fascinating, so it seems like this is like a ripe opportunity for you to have some really fascinating plans.
But I think it's, my approach is a bit different, because what you identified is, okay, there might be some compliance or things that are gonna levy upon us. I look at it as opportunity. Because the Olympics are coming, and that is an NSSE, which is this big thing, National Security Special Event, that's what it stands for. All this money falls out. We can leverage that to get things that we need, and again, right in line with mitigation as opposed to pre-staging for response. I don't even know what those things are, but that money will come, and that's only 10 years away from now, and we're in the first of this 2 5-year cycles. And I think, you know, there's probably some cool stuff in there.
What I remember too, a couple years ago with the 903 year is that, you know, interlodging during the day with however many thousand people we had to shove into all these buildings around the ski area was not, you know, it was pretty scary for some people. And I mean, we were exceeding like our maximums at trying to fit people into buildings. And that is something that we don't really have a plan necessarily for, or I mean, I know I talked to this with Mike Morey a little bit during the 903 year when we were worried about all the avalanches and being on Max Interlodge and trying to set something up in the parking lot. So, I mean, it's always been a thing for us. We have one egress in and out of town. It's always been my worry. But no, I think things like this are always good, whether it's the mitigation or all these plans that you have to create so that you can get this funding. It's always good to have them.
Mike and I talked a lot about is that one of our biggest vulnerabilities is how easily we could be cut off from the rest of the valley and being self-sufficient. There wasn't much in the scope of this project that could necessarily prevent that, but it's certainly something that was on the forefront.
Interesting.
I think the nature system mitigation approach is interesting. There's a lot of really interesting things happening in this world, including like those of you who saw those big retention walls get built down in Sugar Plum in the last couple of years. There is a new approach to it where it's almost like a geodesic tiles, but then you fill it with indigenous living plant material, and so you stack up the retention wall. And the thing that holds it together is the indigenous living plant material. It grows and it sort of welds the whole thing together, which is kind of an interesting approach.
That's really
I use that
interesting.
with the spring beyond.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which comes with problems all its own.
Neat.
This is really cool.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for doing the work.
I guess, does anyone have any new business?
I am very hungry.
Okay, well, do we have a motion to adjourn then?
I can make the motion to adjourn.
Second. Teamwork.
All those in favor?
Yeah. Aye.
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 Thanks, everybody. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. I'm single momming it tonight and have the little toddler here next to me who's been wanting to watch you guys for the last like 5 minutes. So anyways, thank you. Good meeting.
Yeah.
I have to go eat food.
Good.
Right.
Did like upload it in my computer. Yeah.
Taking stuff out of my gear room and